Hi, everybody. Welcome in to Mark's Backyard Birds, Thursday live edition tonight, talking about birds that we have lost and concentrating on the big three. And I was told the bird hike group today that that's what the topic was tonight. And I got comments like, should I bring tissues? Should I have tissues ready? Is it going to be depressing? I said, well, hopefully not. I mean, obviously it's going to be very, very sad. You talk about losing a species altogether, but the point of doing it, of course, is to hopefully that we learn from the mistakes of the past so that we don't repeat them in the future. We've made a lot of changes since these birds went extinct, and now some of those changes we've made are in danger by certain law changes that reducing protection and things like that. So we're going to talk about the big three. And before we get going on that, though, we want to welcome everybody in. My name is Mark McKellar. Especially if you're a new person, first timer, my wife Melanie and I. She's right over here. Hi, Melanie. We own the Backyard Bird Center in Kansas City, Missouri. And it is a brick and mortar retail store that we've owned for 24 years now. And we build our business on education. We feel like if we give people good, sound, biological, accurate facts about bird feeding and birds, bird watching, that people would support us, and that has worked very, very well. People do support us, and you guys are prime examples of that. We started the YouTube channel, really got it going about 3.5 years ago, and it's really, really done well. And we really thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you. You guys are awesome. And we thank you for your continued support. And I'll go ahead and start right off the bat by saying, when you're commenting, if you do comment, like people, you'll see it over here. If you got, hopefully you guys are seeing all this. People are checking in from and giving us their name and where they're from, basically city and state, or some people just do state, some do just, but that gives us an idea, especially me when I'm answering questions, as to know where everybody's checking in from. Now, you guys are all from all over the compass, which is great. And you'll notice that people will be saying hi to each other. They've been doing this for quite a while, and people have made friends back and forth. And so let's go ahead and get people in here. Jess in Ohio, happy to have you on. You're a part of your routine. I think that's great. Hello, Andrew from Cincinnati. You can see that little symbol beside Andrew's name. That means he's a supporter, a member of the friends group, if you will, the support group of the channel that helps keeps us going. That's additional on top of just being a great participant and using pictures and sending them and supporting us. That's a great membership. Thank you, Andrew. And Carol and Jay Erickson on the bird hike this morning. They live up here just north of Kansas City. Our turkey vultures are swooping and swaying in the wind out here. It was a windy day. We were afraid they were roosting. Oh, you know, as long as they're not like prospecting of things to come. I don't think you guys are looking too peaked. You doing so? They're getting what they need. We had a great hike today, by the way. But you guys Taylor, this is Taylor. He was on the hike again today too. Great photographer for us. Just finishing up adding pictures to our eBird list this morning's hike. We'll post a link to the Facebook page later. Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, we had some good birds today, right? 44, 45 species, I think it ended up being for the group. Had some good ducks. We had fish crows, which we don't always get. I mean, they're on the increase up here in Kansas City, but historically been just a southern species. Had a good crowd today. It was beautiful. It's a great day, just a little windy. Temperatures were great. And now the temperatures are plummeting here in Kansas City. I can tell you they've dropped about 20 degrees in the last hour. So we're going to hello Frontier from SoCal, a very regular here in Kathy Woody. Hello, Kathy, Kate, and Baker watching from Salisaw, Oklahoma. Welcome in. All right. Hello, Rick. North Carolina's been in the bed. Oh no. Got up long enough to join in. I hope this lifts your spirit a little bit. Getting old is not fun. I agree with that 100%. Hello, Boston guy from Massachusetts. Goldfinches are starting. Yeah, I bet you yours are starting to go now. Good. Ours are pretty far along, but still not fully. Okay, Melanie, what to put the post to this? These are some of the books that I'm going to be talking about tonight. So she's trying to put in links on Amazon for them if you're interested.
And it's going under my name and not Mark's Backyard Birds.
Yes, Melanie McKellar. That's my wife, and she's it'll be under her name.
In the comments.
Yep, it'll be in the comments. Hello, Lisa from Ontario, Canada. We had our first tree swallows. I saw that. I saw your post on Facebook. With their tree swallows going in the box. That's nice. Brian from Leavenworth. Thank you, Brian. Brian was on the hike today. One of our very regulars. Anyway, yeah, this was the first hike. We had our first bird trip out to Smithville Lake, but 2 Sundays ago, a Sunday ago. And now this was the first bird hike. Now we'll be every Thursday all the way through April and May. So we love this season. Now things are starting to come in. We had, some of the early birds showing up. All right. Hello, Carrie Beth. I'm a store manager and good friend. She was on the hike today. Hello, Drew. Yes, Drew got to join us on the hike this morning, although I had to leave a little early to get to open the store this morning. All right. Hello, Ellie. Very windy. Yeah, very high gusts. Yeah. When the winds are this high, they stay low to the cover. There's a very famous chapter in Aldo Leopold's book that says chickadees can't fly against the wind. So yeah, they have to hunker down when the wind's like this. And in the Midwest, we get these days. Hello, Teresa, also on the bird hike this morning. Welcome in. Jennifer Warren. Chris and Jennifer from Southeast Kentucky. Thanks for joining in. Joe, I think that would be what I would call you. Hello from Boston, Mass. Another Boston person in here. All right. Adam from Denver, North Carolina, headed your way tomorrow morning. We're going to be jumping in the car and headed to, actually, North Myrtle Beach is where we're going to end up. But yeah, we'll cross through North Carolina for sure. Hey, Lori from Southeast Michigan. Welcome in, Lori. Hello, Justin. Thank you so much for your support. It looks like he's gifted another membership to someone on the list. Thank you. Thank you. That, again, really helps support us. It really does. Do you think we've lost more birds or mammals? Ooh. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of it. It's been a while since I've been in wildlife school, but in North America, I would say probably birds, but that I'm not 100% certain about. Oh, wrong one. All right. I can't click on her. Whatever that is gets in the way. Please take care and get better soon. Yes, absolutely. From Southeast Iowa, Nancy, welcome in. From Southwestern Ontario, Rhonda, I recognize you. Another book, The Grail Bird by Tim Gallagher. I will be talking about that and showing you that. I met the two guys from that the book is about when they found the Ivory-billed and a few years back, 2004 maybe when that happened. And I met the guys. I met him, not Gallagher. I met the other guy. And it's been compelling. I'll be talking about that in pretty good length. Paul and Tony from West Michigan, Capturing Michigan. Great photography. Thank you so much for posting those. First of the year Eastern Towhee and Golden Crown Kinglets for us here this week. And there, Towhee's moving north.
Scroll down. Scroll on that black button. There you go.
Yeah, I know. It's a trick getting past that, whatever that is. Hello from Joe Z in Connecticut. Welcome in, Z-Man. All right. Julie Crawford out in Sedalia, Missouri. Not too far away. Oh, I don't know how you survive off 4 hours of sleep. Have you seen WGN TV? Millions of snow geese migrating through as restored wetlands in Havana, Illinois. Happy to see that. That's great to hear. We get them like that, numbers of millions at our Los Bluff National Wildlife Refuge, about an hour and a half north of Kansas City. A huge gathering place for them in spring migration. They are, I tell you, the snow geese have no problem. The only time they get in trouble is whenever they have a big drought on their nesting grounds up in northern Canada. That can knock their numbers back. Whenever there's water in those wetlands up there, they breed very successfully. Hello, Denise from Washington State, another very regular. It was 92 in Kansas City. Yes. And
That
we,
was Saturday, not today.
oh, it was 92 today.
Oh, it was 92
Yeah.
today? Oh, sorry,
My
guys.
truck actually said my 94, but then it's more like 92. And Justin, we went, my daughter and I went to dinner. And when we went in, we were not even an hour, we came back out, the temperature dropped 15 degrees in an hour from the time we went into the restaurant until we came out. Got even from South Georgia, Walt Moody, welcome in. Hello, Sandy Dion. Oh, no.
Sick too. Oh,
Yeah, you guys are feeling better. And another book we're talking about, The Race to Save the Lord God Bird. Philip Hoos. Yes, I'll be talking about.
you're going to put them in the description afterwards.
Yes,
right?
we will do that in the description below the video. Remember, I always forget to talk about that, but below the video, there's a description, and you have to click on it to expand it. But that's got the video description. It's got the my bio, and it's got links and all down there. I'll put in links there for the books Melanie's talking about in there. I was able to get a used copy of The Grail Bird on Amazon. That was signed by the author. Excellent. Kate is excited to start reading it. Absolutely. Yeah, The Grail Bird. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that out there right now. We're going to be discussing that. A lot of birds singing, getting excited for spring migration for sure. Hello from Eastern Tennessee, Mary. Welcome in. All right, let's see, where are we going? From Brookville, Florida, where the bluebirds are in abundance at feeders with live mealworms. Love them. Absolutely. My program coming up on Monday, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and other things about spring. Took a new birder for her first timberdoodle experience last night. Had one land about 15 feet from us. That is cool, Nancy. Yeah, the woodcocks, timberdoodles are pinting now, and people are finding grounds where they are. And yeah, the biggest complaint most people have is that it gets dark so fast. You just don't get to see them very well unless they land within 15 feet of you. Right. Absolutely. Entertaining. Cooper's hawk hovering around today. Did not see any casualties, but I won't have to top off feeders tomorrow morning. Yeah. Yeah, that definitely causes songbirds to scatter. Beautiful weather where you are. Excellent. Well, welcome in from Michigan. Yeah, that has been wild today. I've heard 92 to 93 today, and not tomorrow morning, but was it Saturday morning? It could be 15 degrees is what I saw. So welcome to the Midwest, folks. That's it. Oh, sorry. Hello from Denver. Welcome in. All right, we're about to get started here. Extremely high winds. They damage birds' nests in the trees. Well, it depends on how flimsily the bird nest is built. Most of the time, they anchor them pretty well. Can't kick. Obviously, limbs can break and things like that. But it can toss eggs out of nest. So yeah, wind can be dangerous during the nesting season.
That's a good point.
Ken from Central Indiana, currently under a severe storm warning. For all the bird feeders in, I hope you don't get the hail we had. Hello from Minnesota. Hi, Jim. Welcome in. Their first brood in our houses. Absolutely. I checked this afternoon. They hadn't laid an egg yet, but the nest is complete. I saw them going in and out several times the last few days. So hopefully she's about ready to. Now with this colder temperature, she would probably, ease off. It may not lay eggs for a few more days until this cold front passed. I've gone from 60 yesterday to teens of snow today.
This is the first question.
All right. Get to start with the questions. Why are robins so exceptionally territorial despite traveling in flock groups in winter? Now that it's spring, they're going wild at night in my neighborhood, claiming territory. Absolutely, Justin. That's what they do. I mean, their bodies, and they go through hormonal changes whenever the day length triggers them, and instincts take over, and they are going to set up nesting territories. And boy, they get very aggressive toward other males. The females get aggressive toward other females until they settle out in their territories. And there's going to be a lot of fighting until that does. The pecking order, the dominant birds get the quote, the best nesting sites as the theory goes. But yes, they will definitely fend them off. what do we need to do to help with the birds' nesting season? That's what. That's funny. That's my topic for Monday night. Going to premiere then, but seed becomes far less important to birds during the nesting season. But you still want to feed birds. There's still seed-eating birds that need it. Goldfinches especially, and cardinal the adults are going to be eating a lot of seed. There's still birds eating seed, and the migrants coming through. So I don't want to say stop feeding seed, but to help nesting birds, you can put out nesting material for them, and believe me, that's something that can help. But more importantly, water, Captain Water, and then high protein. And mealworms are a wonderful thing you can put out for them. Live mealworms are far better than dried mealworms, and they go into that in the video. But if you're willing to maintain and feed a lot of mealworms, great. But native landscaping, the most important thing you can do for year round, but especially during the nesting season, because one nest of chickadees or one nest of house wrens, one nest of they take a lot of insects to feed those babies. Babies have to have those insects for the keratin or the calcium for their growing bones. So make sure you select for native plants that produce, you want flowers for pollinators and berries for fruit in the fall, but during the nesting season, ones that are very insect friendly. Like oak trees are the best. Oak trees produce more caterpillars than any other plant that I know of, but there are several other ones that are important. And I've got videos on that. You search the YouTube channel and you look for favorite native plants, favorite plants for birds. Mary and I did a couple of different lives, and she is the expert for me whenever it comes to that. So that's really important during the nesting season. You got 5 eggs. She may delay sitting a day or two with this cold snap, Carrie. Well, no. Hello, Greg from Springfield, checking in. Welcome in. All right. Looks like we got all the welcomes in, and we've given time for everybody to get on. We're going to talk about the birds we've lost. And I know this can be a depressing topic, but I think it's so important. And people have been asking me for more information about these, especially these big 3. And we have lost more than these 3. I mean, there's, some have just been declared extinct in the last few years. The Bachman's warbler, which we've not seen, I think, since the 40s, and the dusky seaside sparrow in South Florida. And, there are others, but the famous 3, and there's reasons they're as famous as they are. Number 1 being the passenger pigeon. In a tagline, the most numerous bird in North America, numbers in the billions to 0. And it didn't take centuries. It took decades for that to happen. So these birds were, I'll show you first of all, I'll show you the range map. This is where the historic range of the passenger pigeon was. And especially up in the Great Lakes region and down through Appalachia, the big oak forest, oak hickory forest that were so prevalent up there, and the huge nesting colonies in those stands of older trees. And they just produce so well. And they were an easy target for market hunting, because they were so thick. And, some of the examples and historic accounts of them is that their flocks stretched miles in the air. They would darken the sun whenever they were passing over. That's how many there were. And the sound that their wings made in flocks that size were described as just, so loud. And now, well, when you got that many birds, you think they're going to last forever. And so market hunting, and they killed them with big scatter guns and all kinds of things. And when there's that many of them, you think there's no problem. There's just endless supply of them. Well, you're harvesting at an alarming rate, but you're also cutting forests. You're clear cutting some of their primary nesting grounds, reducing the sizes of their nesting grounds. And so nesting success goes way down, and they have to travel further to find suitable nesting sites. And then, of course, they're traveling, they're being harvested. I mean, they used to sell them. I know one of the accounts is that some of the, I don't know what the number was, tens of thousands of them rotted in the sun in a train car. They were transporting them out west. The train broke down. And so all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of passenger pigeons in that train car had to be dumped and buried. And that's an example of just how rampant. And of course, there were no laws to protect them. There were no hunting limits. There were no groups screaming to say, you got to stop doing this, until, of course, the numbers got so low. What the statistics show is that they were a huge amount and they got reduced by huge numbers. But really, once the numbers got lower, then it really rapidly declined. They went, and the last bird died in the Cincinnati Zoo, I think, in was it 2013? I think was when Martha passed away. 1914. Sorry, did I say 2000?
You said 2000.
Sorry, 1914. That was 100 years. Okay, so the last one died, Martha, in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914, and just the thought of that happening. Now, of course, when we talk about have we learned from the past, because you're talking about what should be a major lesson. And other birds, these other two birds I'm going to talk about, of course, are similar victims because of the timing. And then, so we passed laws. We passed the Endangered Species Act. We passed an International Migratory Bird Treaty Act, in which protected birds even further. And that, of course, has led to the rebound of many species of birds, not all now. And now, of course, we're in decline again for a lot of species. Unfortunately, some of them just have never slowed down and declined, and it's very, very depressing. Back in these days, they didn't have chemicals that we use today, and so that being introduced has made a huge impact on food supplies for birds and things like that. So it's depressing. I know that. And I don't have a book to share with you about the history of the passenger pigeon, but believe me, there are tons of articles. There's tons of research out there to talk about them and everything that happened. So the passenger pigeon we've lost, and we'll never see one again. Yes, they're talking about some cloning from materials they have from some of the skins and things. And they're talking about trying to bring some back. And of course, everybody has mixed feelings about that, but that's going on. So the bird of the three that we lost, the one that, I'm the one that of all the three that I would want to see would have been the Carolina parakeets. The Carolina parakeets were our only native parrot here in North America. And really, I mean, thick-billed parrots way down in southeast Arizona, the Mexican species that did breed a little bit up in Arizona. But the Carolina parakeet was our only real free-flying parrot, and it was limited to the southeastern U.S., up to the Midwest, up to Missouri. I couldn't find a decent map to share with you. I apologize for that. But, it spread further really than I thought. And then it bred in all across. And then whenever the early accounts of early nations, John James Audubon and Alexander Wilson, and those earliest described them, and how noisy they were, how bright and brilliantly colored they were. And there's been a lot of research done, and the book that Melanie put a link to. We probably ought to increase that back out. The Carolina parakeet. I warn you, you might get sticker shock if you find a copy of it. It's out of publication, so there's not many out there available. So if you find one in the used bookstore, I recommend getting it if you want to read on. It's a great account of kind of the history of what happened with the parakeet. Let me reach back here and get my pet Carolina parakeet. Now you guys see this sitting on my desk or my shelf back there. This looks better. Back there, I bought this many years ago at a trade show. There was a company that had carved birds, and I walked up and I saw this, and I said, "That's mine." And so I bought it from her after the show was over, and I've had it ever since. It's one of my prized possessions. I love it. The yellow jasmine, which is I think the state flower of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, on there as well. But I can just, where I grew up in Southeast North Carolina, I used to dream about, what it would have been like seeing them flying through the woods and the swampy areas and agriculture areas and things of North Carolina when I grew up. But they're all gone too. The last one died 4 years later than Martha, in the same cage in which the last passenger pigeon died. The last Carolina parakeet died at the Cincinnati Zoo. So that's pretty sad. So why did these birds were never as numerous as passenger pigeons? I'm gonna put him up. So back here. So, but why did they go extinct? Well, they were shot as pests. People didn't. One, they were noisy and people didn't like them, so they shot them. Other was, they didn't like them because they ate their cherries. Excuse me, off the trees and other fruits and agricultural areas. But well, you know what the main food of the Carolina parakeet was? I'm going to bring back this picture up. All right, come on. Be nice. You may recognize the seed pods that are John James Audubon painted with the Carolina parakeet painting. If you recognize them, those are kookaburras. Kookaburras. And kookaburras, everybody hated them when I grew up. Kookaburras. Well, kookaburras, it was such an iconic food source for the Carolina parakeet that, like I said, Audubon drew his portrait of them with them, and they ate lots of them. And some of the things that happened, well, one of the things really cool, they believe that the toxicity of the kookaburra seeds is what led them for their bright coloration, because it made them toxic tasting and toxic. And so the bright yellow, just like with Baltimore's and some of the Orioles being yellow in color, some birds on the planet, this a warning, do not eat me. And that's one of the things indicated. And so that's part of their coloration, is to say, hey, don't eat me because I'm poisonous, or my skin, if you eat me, you might get sick. So, but the kookaburras were a major part. And what that did is, because kookaburras grew really well in disturbed soil around agriculture farms and barns and things like that. And so that brought those parakeets into in conflict with humans even more. They would even roost there, of course, around them, and it made them easy targets. And the story that gets most people, it makes most people depressed, is that another thing that led to their demise is when they travel in flocks. Well, if one bird was shot and the bird fell to the ground, the parakeets would turn around and come back for the downed bird. And people would just shoot them again, and they'd fly around and they come in and shoot them again, because that instinct of theirs to go back to their fallen flock mate. So that, again, it's very depressing. But the Carolina parakeet, like I said, it's so sad. I love parrots in the wild anyways. I love seeing them. I'm looking forward to seeing some down in Costa Rica, and there's something else. And, this was our one species that we could still be enjoying today. But again, laws to protect them came too late. Hopefully, habitat destruction, they fed also on, bald cypress seeds, as big balls that they could break open with those strong bills of air. And of course, they clear cut a lot of the cypress swamps in the south, and that's habitat destruction. And so you're seeing a common theme between the cutting of the oak forest for the passenger pigeon, the cutting of the cypress swamps for the Carolina parakeet. So habitat loss is always number one when you're talking about why birds go. And I don't want to make it sound like hunting was totally what killed a passenger pigeon. Habitat loss was widespread, more important, that's for sure. The Carolina parakeet, habitat loss. And of course, then when the numbers get low, then it's easier to make an impact, and then just take them all out. And it's very, very sad. All right. You want to take some questions? We got some?
Only one.
Oh, only one.
Or two, maybe. No, one, because we did the other one right here.
Do we do Lisa?
Lisa just said something.
Oh, okay. I got you. Not sure if this is a dumb question. No dumb questions. Do our native birds eat invasive bugs? Bugs like stink bugs, Japanese bees. There are a lot of those insects they don't eat. Yeah, and you know some of those birds have some their own toxicity built into them and all, and they may experiment when they may eat a little of them, but they're not major parts of their diet. That's for sure.
The Boston guy.
Right. How exactly is an extinct defined? How do we actually know that a species is actually extinct? Well, it's much easier to know today than it was obviously back then. And of course we do, we talk our breeding bird surveys, we do when, especially when a bird is endangered, then a lot of attention is given to and trying to save them. And so there's lots of surveys out there. There's lots of PhD students that take on the project to find pockets of them that are left. And, you know, of course, now we have a lot better communication with the internet. We have, you know, the ability to communicate very quickly, and people can rush out to try to find birds. And we're going to get into more of this, of course, with the ivory-billed being the next species we're talking about. But, you know, it takes a long time. Well, this is like the last sightings of the Bachman's warbler from the southeast, I think we're in the 40s, and they just declared it extinct last year. So they don't immediately, okay, they're gone. And that it takes it's a long process, Boston guy, and they study, they collect data from all over the range, a former range, do surveys, and you know, there's audio surveys, there's of course visual surveys and walking surveys, and of course we identify good patches of habitat that may sustain them, and we search that. So it's an arduous process. Hello, Kurt from up north here. How about the California condor? I didn't talk about him because he's not extinct, but he is definitely endangered. The California condor is a bird that they believe was on its way out. In other words, it was declining for many, many years before European settlement here. And of course, we European settlers here and expansion in North America just accelerated the loss of those birds. But that's a bird that we spent a lot of resources on trying to save it, and captive breeding programs and protections. And, you know, I remember when I was young, they were talking about, you know, they'd have some and they'd find them dead, and they were drinking from a puddle of for the water, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, and it had antifreeze in it from a leaking car, and the birds would die from antifreeze. So lots of perils for birds eating animals that were shot and eating the lead pellets from the meat. You know, the lead poisoning in a lot of birds, and condors being the scavenger that they are. That's a real danger. So yeah, the condor, I understand they've got their first nesting up in a big tree at, is it Oregon or Northern California? They found that yeah, you can follow the condor story online. That is one of the most cared for species on the planet.
This is the next one.
All right, Carol, do you know the status of the lesser prairie chicken? Another bird that it breaks my heart. That's another bird that is in rapid decline, and I've heard things like less than 100 years, you know, less than 50 years. Some people say the numbers are so low, and they're so vulnerable to drought conditions. And you know, whenever birds are common, when they're all over, and you have a drought in this part of their range, these birds flourish and then they can expand. But when birds get reduced to such small numbers and they're concentrated into such small areas, then they're vulnerable to bad storms, drought conditions, wildfires, lots of things that can all impact them. And that's why, you know the story of the whooping crane. Once they're building their numbers up, well, they've made a very conscious decision to introduce some into Florida and to Louisiana to spread that population out, because one major hurricane on the wintering ground down in South Texas could potentially kill all the remaining. It probably wouldn't, but it could. kill all the remaining whooping cranes. So that's an effort to try to spread them out so they're not as vulnerable. So the prairie chickens, I've not seen a Lester. I really want to do it one year and go down to one of the blinds in southwestern Kansas and one day get to see one. All right. What's that? What do you think of Nestwatch? Good program. Yeah, I just heard about it today. Yes, nestwatch.org is a great program because Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It is great, and it's great to participate. I'm working on a data sheet based on theirs so you guys can download it to monitor nests in your yard. And that not just bluebird boxes, but also if you see a cardinal nest in your bushes, you can use this data sheet to keep up with that. And you can submit them all to nestwatch.org. It's all important data. Absolutely. I do like the program a lot.
I think that's it for now.
All right. Welcome in. You made it, huh? All right. From Nana and Papa in Salisal. Okay. Well, Oklahoma. Is that second group from there? I think it is. Maybe. They've been 4 to 6 months. Michigan, due to lead poisoning in the last couple of weeks. That's so sad, and they've been trying to get rid of lead shot for years. But boy, there's such a resistance. All right. Thanks for the answer, Mark. Hit the like button, everybody. There you go. I haven't remembered that. If you like the program, please give it the thumbs up. And of course, your comments always help. Checking in over there. And if you, like I said, if you know people who you think might like the channel and the programs, please share it. That helps us grow. Word of mouth is our best advertising, no doubt. Yes, citizen science. Yes, it is absolutely critical. An exciting bird was spotted in our area. The crested caracara. Is that the same one that was in Kansas? We had one hanging out in northeast Kansas over the last couple of weeks. One was here in the fall and moved further north and has worked its way back to our area bird. Yeah, I tell you, that is a bird that I think we're going to see a lot more commonly up in the middle part of the range. That's the national bird of Mexico, and I think. Some people are not going to let me say this, but climate change, it's getting drier, and those birds are moving more north. We always have accidental birds that show up like that, but yeah, that is an exciting bird. Not outside of the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona area, and Florida too. And inform us how long the bluebirds live. We curious, and the bluebirds we fed 5 years ago were the same ones still coming to our live mealworm feeder in Florida. Thank you so much. You're welcome. That's really, really hard to know. The life of wild birds and bluebird nesting birds, probably 9 to 10 years. But again, there's so many perils out there. And when one dies, the other mate will find a new mate pretty quickly. So it's definitely hard to know. It is possible. 5 years is certainly, and you have them coming back the same year. And people say, well, I know it is because they came back to the same box. No, not necessarily. I mean, all bluebirds are looking for nesting sites, and they come across your box and there's nobody there. They may take over it, and you can't tell one individual from the other unless there's some really weird color pattern or something on it that might be able to tell you. But yeah, it's hard to know. But 5 years, I think, is a real possibility for you. Many were concerned the bird would not survive our winter. Yeah. I mean, just for a desert bird surviving up there that far north, it must have had a continuous food supply and unfrozen water too. Thank you, Barbara, for liking and sharing. That makes such a difference. Have one of these crested carrots. Yeah.
Michigan
and Michigan. And we got to say, we had one in northeast Kansas, probably not too far from Kansas City over the last couple of weeks. It's pretty crazy. All right, we ready? All right, we are going to head now to the last of our birds, the ivory-billed woodpecker. Oh boy, this bird still continues to cause a lot of internet buzz and a lot of mixed feelings. And not everybody's going to agree with what I have, my opinion of it, but it's one of those birds that so many of us, especially in the scientific community, would love to still be out there. And the chances of there being any living are Ivory-billed woodpeckers are very, very rare. It's very, very slim. And I know there are reports out on the internet every few years. Somebody comes out and said they saw one in Florida. Somebody saw one in Louisiana. Someone saw one in Georgia. Someone saw one, but there's never been documented. Officially, there's a paper out there right now trying to get peer review and acceptance about this latest one in Louisiana. And if they have the evidence, I'd love to see it. And I would definitely tip my cat, because the ivory-billed woodpecker, the one on the right, the one on the left is our traditional pileated, and you can see how much bigger. If you know how most people react to the pileated and how big it is, you can see why they called the ivory-billed the Lord God bird, because people would say, Lord God, look at that bird, because it is that big. And it's a woodpecker, that huge bill and striking, black and white and flight and the crest. They were a magical bird. But they were pretty much confined to the great swamps, the southeast, and they lived in remote places. I'll give you that. But they were shot. and Native Americans loved use their bills as decorations, and and of course, egg collectors, and the biggest thing of all, I'm going to go right back to it, is habitat destruction. You see in those big, huge swamps down in the southeast, they clear cut so many of them, and those were the forests in which the ivory-bills lived in. Now, they were never super plentiful. We think that, for that, they're big birds that require big tracts of timber. They need old timber, old rotting wood. They eat the grubs, big old grubs that attack trees right after they first die. That's why there's so many, accounts of them flipping off huge chunks of bark and things. And people like Alexander Wilson, I mean, in John James Audubon, describe them at length and how, what and all people held them up. And then, of course, the number started dwindling with European settlement, and of harvesting. And then people, like I said, people shooting them, killing them, and things. But really, again, we're going to go back to loss of habitat. You reduce the size of timber. And of course, whenever young trees grow back in clear cut areas, it takes, for their size trees, 100, 200 years before they get back to the size they can use. So their numbers shrank and shrank and shrank, and were isolated into areas of very remote swamps where timber harvest wasn't possible. And again, the further they are from people back into these great swamps, the more likely that some could survive. And there's famous stories and that happened, I think, in the 50s. And whenever the numbers were really, 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 or maybe it was the 40s, they're really getting there, and getting very, very low. And a guy said, I think he was from Mississippi, and he said that he had one of these birds, and the conservation agent he was dealing with kept telling him, no, you don't have that. One day he walked into their office and threw a dead ivory-billed woodpecker on their desk and said, "Is this the bird you tell me that I haven't been seeing?" And obviously he had been seeing this ivory-billed woodpecker. And so there's stories like that all through the last 100 years, especially in the last 50 years. And I know, the last known nesting population was on a tract of timber known as the Singer tract, owned by the Singer Sewing Machine Company. Huge, huge tract of timber down there. And that's where a lot of the last studies, the last documented photographs came from that area. Well, the birds disappeared. They hadn't been seen. And here's the difference between then and now. Today, there would have been a protection for the whole area. But instead, once they were gone for a few years, the Singer company decided to sell and clear cut the whole area. So that last remaining tract in that whole area, and they could have been in there in areas closer to it or whatever. But when you clear cut it, you guarantee there's no more ivory bills in that tract. And so that's definitely a sad testament of what's happened. Now, is the bird still alive? I get asked this all the time. What are your feelings on, could there still be ivory-bills out there? My opinion is no. And people I respect in the conservation community and the ornithological community that we talk about it, and people who know a lot more about it than I do, will tell you they do not believe it. The ones that were down in Arkansas back in 2004, the one that was cited, and this is the book written about that, okay, and that's the Grail bird, and that is. Let me get this back up here. Tim Gallagher, who's from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and another gentleman. And like I said, I've met the guys who wrote this book, and I listened to their presentation of what they saw, and it is fascinating. And I truly believe that they saw an ivory-billed woodpecker. Well, within days and over months of this sighting, there was an army of people down there putting up listening devices, putting up hand-carved ivory bills on the sides of trees, deep in the swamp, and a camera set up on them, and listening devices all over. Because by all reports, all historical accounts, is that this is one of the loudest birds you've ever heard. They never stop talking. They sound like an oboe, blowing air through an oboe mouthpiece, or a little toy, but very distinct. And they went down there and they played tapes everywhere. They played, they believe me, this was so well surveyed, and not just in that area of Arkansas. They did it all over the Southeast, and this because it just gave hope that there could be birds. Nothing. They never got a single sound bite that could have been a bird. And there were people down there, blowing and playing calls and everything all over the place, but no answers. And for the people who have studied the bird extensively, they truly believe, had there been a bird there, then it would have answered at least some, and he would have heard it. Now, what could have happened? Could that have been an ivory-billed they saw? And then I've heard people say that the landowners down there didn't want foreigners coming into their area, and it's possible somebody shot it. If it was there, I don't know. There's no confirmation of that. But one thing's for sure, a historic search was conducted, and no evidence was ever put up. Now they found again. So, and more recently, there have been searches and reports of one in Florida that they, again, extensively thought they had glimpses of, and bad video of. And then there was one, I think it was 2013, 2023, 24. There was one now, the most current one, rumors are the one in Louisiana. So again, talking to people in the community that I really, really respect, it would be so wonderful if there were still some surviving, but I'd have to see really good evidence and hear really good evidence, because the videos are so blurry, and you can get videographers to tell you why it looks like there's more white in the wing because of how cameras work and the white bleed, and there can be leucistic pileatus. Believe me, folks, there are tons of pileatus down there in the southern swamps. They're all over down there, and there'll be one that is a little more white than normal. Then they don't, there's that kind of stuff. So again, to confirm a sighting, there's going to have to be some really, really sound documentation to convince the community.
All
right.
Go really quick right there.
All right. What does my shirt say? All right. It says, Ellie, I am not lost. I'm bird watching. That was on
this one too.
And Mellie's wearing her Life of a Birder.
Let me get, if I can get it
All right, come on over. Sit in my lap. Like, these are all available on the online store. That's the Mark swag, different shirts, and you can get them in sweatshirts and long sleeve t-shirts. So, all right.
They go up above Ellie.
All right, right above Ellie. Can you touch on the Labrador duck? That I know very little about. That is, in all my years, I have I never really studied that, so I would have to research that to give you any good information. So much of it is, uh, and I admit that a lot of these birds that have gone extinct may have already been going extinct over time because of changes in the environment and natural occurrences that caused effects on their nesting grounds, things like that. But I do not. I wish I knew more about the Labrador duck. That's a good question.
We're all caught up on questions.
What'd that say about? I've read so much about that, but in bayous where they see it, not payments. If they prove it, then people will wreck the small. And that's true. That is. It's just like today. We know about eBird. I have so many of my bird watching friends refuse to post anything on there, especially for sensitive species. Long-eared owl is a prime example in our area that, and I know birders that find them pretty much every winter, but they will not post the locations because here they go, and everybody's blasting tapes, and it doesn't matter as long as I see mine. That's all that matters. I don't care if you're endangering the bird or so. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I can see why if I lived down there or local, I wouldn't want people to know about it. See, Michigan now has a state duck, the wood duck. Wow, that's really far south for the state duck, I would think. I think of the wood ducks as being southern, but they are gorgeous. I don't blame you. Did Melanie get her raise from last week?
What was it you came upstairs saying?
I said I was going to double her salary. And then at the end, James it said I needed to bump it more. So I said I was going to triple her salary. And you guys know the math. 3 times 0 is 0. So, yeah. She does a great job. I love her. And I'd be lost without her, as James pointed out last week. That's for sure.
He's not on here tonight.
I haven't seen James tonight. He must be out.
Oh, here's another question.
All right. Are large groups of mallards rare for this time of year? 26 million birds a day. And it said, well, this time of year, birds are, ducks, everybody are breaking up and not traveling. The fall, we see hundreds of thousands of them up at Los Bluffs. But this time of year, the large groups like that are less common. But you know how eBird works? They have their parameters, they're set. And if it's a day or two outside of their parameters of that they have set, then they're going to flag it because, we're not seeing, it's a tricky thing. But no, we definitely saw several mallards flying over today. And they we had all those gadwall and we had shovelers together. Those flocks are still together and they're still moving north. So, it's not that rare. All right. Miss producer. All right. So it stays on the endangered. Right. And that's the other thing I want you to make sure it takes a long time before the species to be declared extinct. And it takes extensive research and proof. And it's why never say never. I mean, you would hope that, but enough time has gone by without a verified pictures or verified recordings of an ivory-billed woodpecker. And the longer that time goes, we're getting close to 100 years now. That they because, like I said, there's all the sightings that we've had in the recent years is they're all still debatable, and whether that exactly what that was. So,
okay, here's a question about
all
books.
Right. Regarding books on birds, any general recommendations? I have several from Sibley and want to increase my library. Yes, and I keep promising to do a program on Mark's library, my bird library back here. Yes,
turn so they can see it. Let me see.
Get that out of there.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's shelf 1.
Yeah, and my books were built on field guides. So I don't know if you can't see them up there, but I got lots of field guides up there. And whenever you start bird watching, you have to decide on which ones you want. Today with apps and things, it's not the same. But we used to call the back seat of our car the library, because we'd have 3 or 4 different field guides in the back of the car, so we could compare pictures of what we were seeing, things like that. But then you expand into bird books about birds, and there's lots of those. And I've featured some of my favorites, and we can go do that again on that. But then a lot of it is finding guides. Again, the eBird and the internet has made a lot of these birds obsolete, but I still love them. And these are over here. These are the many of the guides to Southeast Arizona, guides to South Texas, guides to Colorado, and all those. And those are books that are geared for finding the birds, areas where it's good to go see greater sage grouse, or birds that you're just not going to find driving down the road in most places. So those had a huge impact on me in my early bird watching. Whenever we got a chance to travel, those books helped me whenever we were going to Arizona, or we were going anywhere else, to help to go to sites. Now, of course, those quickly change. I remember in Florida, we went there to one site that they recommended, and went out there, and it was a shopping mall from the directions in the book. So yes, they change, but they're very, very useful. And then down here below me are, books that are on groups of birds. This is all about woodpeckers. So much more detailed information about woodpeckers than, of course, a field guide is going to be. And they've got them on owls and warblers and tanagers and many of those over the years. And then, seabirds and water birds. So that's part of the library, and those are all great. And it depends on your interest. If you're wanting books about just birds and the life history of birds and bird watching, the hobby and things like that, or do you want books that are, I want to learn as much as I can about the warblers? There are several good books that you want to get into, and you read lots of detail on those. So, and then I've got art books, books that Roger Torrey Peterson, one of my true heroes. He invented the modern field guide, and I love his artwork. I just so respect what the man was all about, and so I've got some of his work. I did show me that. I want to show this one real quick.
This one?
Yeah, this. It actually could be the most valuable book I own. If you know who Charlie Harper is, the artist, this is a Charlie Harper illustrated school book. And
giant golden book of biology.
The old golden guide. You remember the old golden guides, if you remember those, but it is filled with nothing but Charlie Harper's artwork. And his style was so unique. And I'm told that this book is quite rare now, and it is worth quite a bit of money. Now, it is worn. I bought it at a garage sale years ago, and I have protected it ever since. I love Charlie Harper's artwork, but this is, so I've got, it's just a bunch of books out there. So when you're looking for bird books, it is all based on where you're going. My most popular book right now, The Birds of Costa Rica, because I'm planning, we're going to go in there, Lord willing, in August. And so I'm studying intensely already. Because believe me, almost every bird I'm going to see down there is going to be a life bird for me. So that's the most popular on my bookshelf.
Use a lot. The handbook.
Yeah, and I featured this recently, and this is one, if you can find, folks, this has got the Birder's Handbook. You see how thick it is. If you see those little Post-it marks in there, this book has been used to death. It has incredible short essays on so many bird topics. And then it's got features on each bird in field guides in North America. It is fantastic. And I know it's not in production anymore, so you can find a used copy of that on Amazon, whatever. If you love birds and you're getting into bird watching at a higher level, I love this book, and I've learned so much from it. Just things you don't think about. I mean, there's an essay on egg coloration and what makes that happen, and it's a great one. So I hope that helps. I mean, like I said, I've always taught my kids reading is knowledge. And you'll never waste your time reading and studying. And people say, Mark, how did you learn so much about birds? And I tell people, I started from nothing. I was a fish guy, and I love reptiles, and I like birds, and I'd see them, but it all started in college, and it literally for me, it started with me taking the field guide, and it was a golden guide back then that I was required to buy for this course I had to take, and once I boom, it clicked with that seeing that prairie warbler that morning. I said, I want to learn more about birds. I just went through and I started memorizing that field guide because I didn't know a vireo from a warbler from a sandpiper, those kind of things. I knew basics of them, but I didn't know all the different ones. So I went through and I really started reading and memorizing names and learning names and looking at the maps, going, where do we have to go there to go set that, and started looking for them. John and I, man, we would jump in the car and drive, and we would, we'd go to the beach and look for sandpipers and, shorebirds and terns and gulls. And we'd go to the mountains and look for black-throated blue warblers and things like that. And that's just how it started. And it just grew to a passion. And of course, I was able to take ornithology, so I learned a much deeper level about them, and it just never stopped.
Here we go.
All right. You can probably do an entire bird books. Yes, I'm probably going to have to do that very soon, Lisa. You're right.
And I do have on my to-do list to take pictures of all the books and post out there.
You hear my producer over there? It's on her to-do list.
That's a big project.
That's a big project, cataloging the books. Yeah, but I have my favorites just like everybody else. You got when you come across a book and you really love it, boom. I totally agree with you. Okay. Thank you. Like I said, I was afraid I knew people were not going to have the viewership tonight because it wasn't about bird feeding or bird nests and things like that. But I hope you want to learn more about these birds, these very special birds that were so important. What's next Monday? Next Monday is the program on spring and how you can help your birds more. About feeders not being as important, still important, but what you should do to help birds in spring and help birds, period. So that's what next Monday is. Next Thursday will be the April wild bird update, because that will be the 2nd of April.
And you'll be alone.
I'll be alone. Ooh, I'll be lost again. But yes, that's next Thursday night. So we're leaving in the morning. Like I said, I fly back next Wednesday to be back here. So I'll be for the Thursday morning bird hike and the live next Thursday night. So you guys are awesome. Thank you all so much for your participation tonight, your kind words. Always like birds, but the first time I saw a painted
Me too.
Yeah, that was it. We were at the beach. We were dating, and I heard one. I saw it. I went back to and got her and brought her back out and said, okay, look at the top of that. It was actually on a shrimp boat up on the mast. And I said, look at that bird sitting up there. And I gave her the binoculars, and she was hooked. That's for sure. She fell in love with the painted bunting.
Here's another idea.
Oh, yeah, I have. And I really need to revisit that because I need to do it every so often. Yeah, I've done about programs about, how to use binoculars, understanding what the binoculars are, how to select a pair of binoculars. But it's time to revisit the optics, the binoculars are done on spotting scopes as well. So thank you, guys. I've been reading about the extinct birds of North America for some time. I do too.
So
yeah, I really, yeah, I agree, Frontier. Thank you, guys. Absolutely. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Again, send in ideas for more programs. I'd love hearing that. And it helps me to, I get them on the list. Believe me, I got a whole page of folders I've created when people suggest things, and I try to get them and put them into the chain to get them made. So you guys are awesome. All right. Yep. Time and optics would be wonderful. Excellent. Absolutely. We're going to make it happen. Oh, okay. Yep. We'll get that up quick. You can look back for binoculars or optics on the YouTube channel now, and you can watch a couple of the older ones that may help you. I love Nikon. I've always been a Nikon man, and I love Kowa. Kowa is a great binoculars, and they're great. I think the best spotting scopes on the market. So there you go. We will let you guys go. We got to get packed up and load the car in the morning and head out.
Packing.
Yeah, they're packing up there. So thank you all. Have a good evening. And until next time, let's talk birds.